A flying car is hypothetical personal aircraft that provides door-to-door aerial transportation as conveniently as a car but without the requirement for roads, runways or other specially prepared operating areas. In addition, the aircraft lacks any visible means of lift, thus allowing it to be operated in urban areas and close to buildings, people and other obstructions. Fulfillment of some of these goals is being attempted by personal air vehicles being developed. The term flying car has also been used to refer to roadable aircraft and hovercars. The flying car has been depicted in works of fantasy and science fiction, such as Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, The Jetsons, Star Wars, Blade Runner, The Fifth Element and the first two Back to the Future films, as well as in technology magazines such as Popular Science, Popular Mechanics, and Mechanics Illustrated. The flying car was and remains a common feature of science fiction and conceptions of the future, including imagined near futures such as those of the 21st century. As an example, less than a month before the turn of the millennium, the U.S. journalist Gail Collins noted, "Here we are, less than a month until the turn of the millennium, and what I want to know is, what happened to the flying cars? We're about to become Americans of the 21st century. People have been predicting what we'd be like for more than 100 years, and our accoutrements don't entirely live up to expectations. Our failure to produce flying cars seems like a particular betrayal since it was so central to our image." As a result, flying cars have also been referred to jokingly with the question, "Where's my flying car?" emblematic of the supposed failure of modern technology to match futuristic visions that were promoted in earlier decades. Notable flying cars in fiction. Star Wars flying cars appear in Star Wars where they are called airspeeders, such as those that can be seen on the planet of Coruscant in all three Star Wars prequel movies, from 1999's The Phantom Menace onward. They are also featured in Attack of the Clones, where an early chase sequence involves flying cars. In 2005's Revenge of the Sith, Bail Organa rides a retro-futuristic vehicle that, apart from its flying ability, resembles a 1950-style car. Blade Runner, spinner, is the generic term for the fictional flying cars used in Blade Runner, set in futuristic cyberpunk Los Angeles of 2019. A spinner can be driven as a ground-based vehicle, and take off vertically, hover, and cruise using jet propulsion much like vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. They are used extensively by the police to patrol and survey the population, and it is clear that despite restrictions, wealthy people can acquire spinner licenses. The vehicle was conceived and designed by Sid Mead, who described the spinner as an aerodyne, a vehicle which directs air downward to create lift. Though press kits for the film stated that the spinner was propelled by 3 engines, conventional internal combustion, jet, and anti-gravity, Mead's conceptual drawings were transformed into 25 working vehicles by automobile customizer Gene Winfield. A spinner is on permanent exhibit at the Science Fiction Museum and Hall of Fame in Seattle, Washington. Back to the Future and Back to the Future Part 2 and Back to the Future Part 2 and the ending of Back to the Future. Doc Brown invites Marty and his girlfriend Jennifer in his modified flying DeLorean time machine, and time travels to the year 2015 where flying hovercars are a common sight. The Fifth Element. In The Fifth Element, set in 2263 New York City, flying cars are used as main mean of transportation. The production design for the film was developed by French comics creators Jean Giraud and Jean-Claude Mézières. Mézières wrote the book The Circles of Power, which features a character named Strax, who drives a flying taxicab through the congested air traffic of the vast metropolis on the planet Rubenize. Besson read the book and was inspired to change the Dallas character to a taxicab driver who flies through a futuristic New York City. The Animatrix. In the best-selling animated film The Animatrix, specifically in the episode called The Second Renaissance, appears a supposed TV commercial announcing a flying car called Versatran. This episode details the backstory of the Matrix universe and the original war between man and machines which led to the creation of the Matrix. Among its content shows the elaboration of the Versatran propulsion engines, and how those engines will later be used in hovercraft battleships like the Nebuchadnezzar. Real-world flying cars. Early developments. In 1926, Henry Ford displayed an experimental single-seat aeroplane that he called the Sky Flivver. The project was abandoned 2 years later when a distance record attempt flight crashed, killing the pilot. The Flivver was not a flying car at all, but it did get press attention at the time, exciting the public that they would have a mass-produced affordable airplane product that would be made, marketed, sold, and maintained just like an automobile. The airplane was to be as commonplace in the future as the Model T of the time. In 1940, Henry Ford famously predicted, "Mark my word, a combination airplane and motorcar is coming. You may smile, but it will come." In 1956, Ford's advanced design studio built the Volante Triathlon, a 3/8 scale concept car model. It was designed to have 3 ducted fans, each with their own motor, that would lift it off the ground and move it through the air. In public relation release, Ford noted that, "The day where there will be an aero car in every garage is still some time off," but added that, "The Volante indicates one direction that the styling of such a vehicle would take." In 1957, Popular Mechanics reported that Hiller Helicopters is developing a ducted fan aircraft that would be easier to fly than helicopters, and should cost a lot less. Some estimated that in 10 years a 4-place fan would cost like a good car. Hiller engineers expected that this type of an aircraft would become the basis for a whole family of special-purpose aircraft. In 1956, the U.S. Army's Transportation Research Command began an investigation into flying jeeps, ducted fan-based aircraft that were envisioned to be smaller and easier to fly than helicopters. In 1957, Chrysler, Curtiss-Wright, and Piasecki were assigned contracts for building and delivery of prototypes. They all delivered their prototypes, however Piasecki's VZ-8 was the most successful of the 3. While it would normally operate close to the ground, it was capable of flying to several thousand feet, proving to be stable in flight. Nonetheless, the Army decided that the flying jeep concept was unsuitable for the modern battlefield, and concentrated on the development of conventional helicopters. In addition to the Army contract, Piasecki was developing the Sky Car, a modified version of its VZ-8 for civilian use. In the mid-1980s, former Boeing engineer Fred Barker founded Flight Innovations Inc., and began the development of the Sky Commuter, a small duct fans-based VTOL aircraft. It was a compact, 14-foot-long, 2-passenger and was made primarily of composite materials. In 2008, the remaining prototype was sold for £86,000 on eBay. Modern developments. Urban Aeronautics X-Hawk is a VTOL turbojet-powered aircraft announced in 2006 with a first flight planned for 2009. It was intended to operate much like a tandem rotor helicopter, but with ducted fans rather than exposed rotors. The requisite decrease in rotor size would also decrease fuel efficiency. The X-Hawk was being promoted for rescue and utility functions. As of 2013, no flights had been reported. The Moller Skycar M400 is a prototype personal VTOL aircraft which is powered by 4 pairs of in-tandem Wankel rotary engines, and is approaching the problems of satellite navigation, incorporated in the proposed small aircraft transportation system. Moller also advises that, currently, the Skycar would only be allowed to fly from airports and heliports. Moller has been developing VTOL crafts since the late 1960s, but no Moller vehicle has ever achieved free flight out of ground effect. The proposed Auto-Volantor model has an all-electric version powered by Alternano batteries. The Explorer PX200 is a French project of single-seater VTOL aircraft without rotating airfoil, relying on the Coanda effect and using an array of small jet engines called thermoreactors embedded within tiltwing's body. Announced in 2007, the project has been funded by the government of France and is now supported by various aerospace firms. A full-scale drone is scheduled for flight at Paris Air Show 2017, followed by the commercialization of a single-seater flying car in the years after. On May 7, 2013, Terrafugia announced the TFX, a plug-in hybrid tilt-rotor vehicle that would be the first fully autonomous flying car. It has a range of 500 miles per flight and batteries are rechargeable by the engine. Development of TFX is expected to last 8 to 12 years, which means it will not come to market before 2021 to 2025. The Skyrider X2R is a prototype of a flying car developed by Macro Industries, Inc. It is lighter than the Moller Skycar. Feasibility, motivation, and challenges. The widespread replacement of ground vehicles for flying cars might eliminate the necessity for most asphalt roads. Several challenges to a practical flying car exist. However, to date, no vertical takeoff and landing vehicle has ever demonstrated such capabilities. To produce such an aircraft would require a propulsion system that is quiet, to avoid noise complaints, and has non-exposed rotors so it could be flown safely in urban environments. Additionally, for such aircraft to become airborne, they would require very powerful engines. Many types of aircraft technologies and form factors have been suggested, such as ducted fan and tiltrotor vehicles. But most previous designs have suffered from problems. Ducted fan aircraft tend to easily lose stability and have difficulty traveling greater than 30 to 40 knots, while tiltrotors, such as the V-22 Osprey, are generally noisy. Economics due to the requirement of propulsion that is both small and powerful. The cost of producing a flying car would be very high and estimated by some as much as $10 million. In addition, the flying car's energy efficiency would be much lower compared to conventional cars and other aircraft. Optimal fuel efficiency for airplanes is at high speeds and high altitudes, while flying cars would be used for shorter distances, at higher frequency, lower speeds and lower altitude. For both environmental and economic reasons, flying cars would be a tremendous waste of resources. Safety. Although statistically commercial flying is much safer than driving, unlike commercial planes, personal flying cars might not have as many safety checks and the pilots would not be as well trained. Humans already have problems with the aspect of driving in 2 dimensions. Adding in the up and down aspect would make driving, or flying as it would be, much more difficult. However, this problem might be solved via the sole use of self-flying and self-driving cars. In mid-air collisions and mechanical failures, the aircraft could fall from the sky or go through an emergency landing, resulting in deaths and property damage. In addition, poor weather conditions, such as low air density, lightning storms and heavy rain or fog could be challenging and affect the aircraft's aerodynamics. In popular culture, complaints of the non-existence of flying cars have become nearly idiomatic as expressions of disappointment in the failure of the present to measure up to the glory of past predictions. The December 30, 1989, Calvin and Hobbes comic strip depicted an early instance of the "Where are the flying cars?" question. Hobbes: a new decade is coming up. Calvin: yeah, big deal. HMPH: where are the flying cars? Where are the moon colonies? Where are the personal robots and the zero-gravity boots? Who? You call this a new decade? You call this the future? Ha! Where are the rocket packs? Where are the disintegration rays? Where are the floating cities? The March 15, 1992 Calvin and Hobbes comic strip featured Calvin and his parents driving on the freeway. Calvin complains, "When are we going to get there? Can't you drive any faster?" His father replies, "I don't like to go much faster than this." Calvin daydreams that he is allowed to take control of the vehicle, discovering a hidden flight mode that enables the car to soar to their destination. Aired on January 8, 1998, Seinfeld's 167th episode, The Dealership, featured George and Jerry complaining about the non-existence of the flying cars. Jerry says, "It's like we're living in the 50s here." A 2001 IBM television commercial featured Avery Brooks complaining, "It is the year 2000. But where are the flying cars? I was promised flying cars. I don't see any flying cars. Why? Why?" Comedian Louis Black had a similar routine early in the decade, in which he says, "This new millennium sucks. It's exactly the same as the old millennium. You know why? No flying cars." The Flying Car was a comedy short film written by Kevin Smith in 2002 for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. It featured Dante Hicks and Randall Graves stuck in traffic, discussing the lengths to which a man might go to obtain such a vehicle. In 2008, Onion News Network's 245th episode, titled "Mean Automakers Dash Nation's Hope for Flying Cars," featured the Onion's anchor Brandon Armstrong humorously arguing about the feasibility and existence of flying cars with representatives from General Motors, Toyota and Ford.